Welcome to or welcome back to the Everyday Leadership Series. This initiative is about telling stories from everyday people's lives about the ways in which they're showing up that are unique and beautiful, not necessarily perfect, but through the challenges that they may be having in their lives or sometimes facing a transition. And so what we're doing with this initiative is trying to shine light on what individuals in their own personal lives are doing that help them be more resourceful or more effective in terms of moving through some of the challenges that we sometimes face. And I have one of my favorite humans with me on the line today, and she's a mom of 2 active boys, a sister, an aunt, a daughter, and a good friend, and one of the kindest souls that I know. And so you're in for a real treat this morning. I've got Colleen, Dahr, Ma on the line with me. Good morning, Colleen.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joanne. That was a nice intro.
So we're going to just have a chat, and we've got potentially some technical issues that may show up, but we'll do our best to navigate through those, and hopefully they don't. Colleen tells me that potentially satellites move and we might lose her. She lives on in the District of North Van, so you know they have their own unique things going on over there, which is sometimes a lack of cell reception, which is probably a good thing. That's why you guys are always in the forest.
That's right.
That's
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Okay, so let's jump in. And so when you think, I'm using the question of like, what is life offering you or presenting to you right now, for you to examine or consider or look at in a new light. So what's going on for you?
What's going on for me? Yeah, this is a big time in my life. I have had some pretty major changes or transformations in the last few months. And so I'm happy to have this conversation with you. So thank you for inviting me. In the beginning of the year, I was let go from my position as an enterprise account executive at a software company in Vancouver. And so that bit of a tailspin has put me into a position where I'm not waiting anymore to figure out what my true purpose is. So that is kind of the foundation of the work that I've been doing over the past few months. And I'm happy to talk to you a little bit more about where I've come to or the progression of that journey.
Nice. We'll go ahead and do that. I'd love to hear. So
Yeah,
you said
sure.
the word tailspin at first, and then where you've come to. So maybe give us a glimpse of what has become clearer to you now, and maybe your process for getting there.
Yeah. So what happened after the new year was a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't see it coming, and it wasn't something that I was anticipating. So, in my head, I thought, I'll do this job for the next few years. I'll probably put some money away. We'll get ourselves into a better financial position. And then at that point, I'll start to look at the things that actually interest me, that I feel passionate about, and the areas of my life that I really want to focus on. So that was kind of where I was headed in terms of the path that I had for me. But I had a situation where the management or the leadership team felt like what I was producing wasn't working for a startup. They needed somebody that had a little bit more, I guess, urgency around the ability to close a deal at the time that they needed it to be. And to be honest, I feel like I've always had a little bit of a black spot in that regard, because I'm more of a people person. I'm kind of driven more on trust and empathy and understanding, and so that was always a little bit of a hard time for me. So that that conversation that I had with them kind of led me to this point where it was kind of like, no, this work needs to be done now instead of waiting the 5 years. And so a lot of, introspection, a lot of awakening has been done in that time.
Nice, nice. And so, and thank you for sharing that part, and you've described it very well, in terms of what was right for you about that, and not right for you about that. So what, when you think about this transition, what does it mean to you personally right now?
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, you can probably also understand how it works to be a career mom, right? So
Mhm.
you got that push and pull of really enjoying the fact that you have a career, but that you're also feeling like you're not necessarily at your full potential with anything in particular. So, for me, the whole idea around multitasking has always been a little bit of a challenge. I actually read something recently that said that you're only 60% on your game at anything when you're trying to do multiple things at once. And so I
That sounds
actually,
right.
yeah, yeah. And I used to walk around being like, I'm an excellent multitasker, but in the last while, it's just like, I don't actually want to multitask anymore. I don't
Right.
feel like I'm particularly good at anything that I'm doing. In fact, I sometimes, in my old life before all of this undoing, I kind of felt like I was in hypothermic mode where only the things that had to happen were happening, because
Right.
all the extras, I couldn't function in doing them, because everything was very centered around my job. And even when I wasn't at my job, I was thinking about my job.
Mm.
So it was a real energy suck, but it also just had to do with my foundation not being very sturdy. Like, I felt like I wasn't rooted. I felt like every little thing came along and sort of pushed me off balance, and I had a really hard time trying to find myself in all of it. So, like, a lot of the work that I've been doing is kind of like pulling it back, and kind of understanding how I got to where I am, first of all, because, I certainly as a teenager wouldn't have imagined myself being in business.
Mm.
And then second of all, like, what are those relationships, or what are those, I, I guess, like, statements that have been made along the way that have made me kind of where I am today, and the understanding of who I am as a person. So it's kind of a bit of a deeper dive,
Yeah.
as you might imagine, but it's come up with some pretty interesting things, and most of it is just around awareness.
Nice.
That's the bigger piece.
Nice. So it sounds like when you think about this transition personally, I heard you say it's doing a few things. One, it's allowing you to look again at the roots and the foundation that you have to better identify like who you are there and where
Yeah,
you want to build from. Um,
exactly.
and that also, it sounds like there's been some analysis of, you use the word statements and relationships, but it's all of these things that kind of create the story of why am I doing what I'm doing in the world, right?
Yeah,
Why did I choose that role or that job, and what am I giving up by doing that job? And the trade-offs that we make all the time around the ability to earn a living, I guess, at some
yeah.
point. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and ego. I mean, there's a piece of that that's ego, right? That you drive your own self-esteem from, who you are as a person. You go to a party, the first thing somebody asks is, "What do you do?" Like, I
It's
did, I did spend like 7 years as an at-home mom, and really felt like that was always something that wasn't as aspired to as, maybe some of the other things that you could talk to people about when you're in a social setting. So there's that piece, but I also think it's kind of a coming of age thing. And again, doing some reading around that, is that humans generally, you come up through university, you find your career, you maybe get your family going, you got your home, like, it's all a natural progression, and then you have all these things, and then all of a sudden, like, you realize that those aren't making you happy. And
mm,
so then that's where the undoing comes. Like, you're like, okay,
right,
so if all
right.
these things that I've aspired to still are leading me to this point of feeling discontent, then really like, what is this all about, and where am I missing these pieces? And so, if you're talking about like where I'm at now, it's that kind of idea around the discomfort of the unknowing. So
Mm,
giving myself the space to be in this place of not really knowing where I'm at, and really navigating around others' perceptions of that, because often the people
mm.
around you are very uncomfortable with that idea, including your partner
Yeah, of course.
and
Yeah.
your friends, and like, well, what are you doing is often the question, and often the answer is, I'm wandering around in the forest and I'm contemplating life, and those things are generally just not something that our culture is accustomed to. You have to have a direction, you have to be working towards something. So those kinds of things are what I'm quote unquote working on right now.
I love that. I love that. That sounds so beautiful the way you say that. So, um, I mean, I'm struck by obviously what's going on in the world right now, and how does
Yeah.
that layer on top of already what you're feeling around this discomfort of the unknown, but also handling other people's perceptions of what you're doing or not doing, like a kind of an industrious kind of feeling of must be doing something. So, what would you say about that?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question, because that's another one that I've really been thinking a lot about lately. I feel like I actually feel a lot of hope and joy, which is interesting because that is not what I've been reading
Mm,
or hearing from my peer group. I feel like this is me an opportunity to really just be with my kids.
mhm,
We have
mhm.
a lot of busyness in the world, a lot of soccer, a lot of flag football, getting them to school, all of these things that we generally fill our lives with. But in this time when we're quarantined and having to be at home, then I can just let that all go, and
Right.
then we can, yesterday I did a puzzle and we baked a cake, and I videoed my son doing some mountain bike tricks out in the forest. But it's not like I'm not organizing, I'm not driving, I'm not
Yes.
doing
Yes.
a lot of busy work. And I feel it like it's a little bit like the waters in Venice that are clearing, and the pollution that's blowing off of China. It's like
I
just this
know.
time of rest.
It's so
It's
crazy, right?
rest.
I
Yeah, like I feel like, back to the whole idea around multitasking, is that I have the ability just to not have to be part of
right.
all of the doing, and just being. So being present, being aware of the fact that this time with them is short, and not having to find my life's purpose in this particular moment. So it's kind of a gift.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad that
Mm.
that's the way it's feeling to you.
Yeah.
Um, so what are you relying on as from a personal perspective? What are you relying on, or what do you know to be true about yourself that brings you or delivers you through moments like this or transitions like this or times like this in your life? Because I know you've had hard things happen in the past.
Mhm.
So what are the things about you that you think you draw upon that help you?
Hmm. Well, I'm fortunate that I came from a place where we were really encouraged to talk about our feelings and to work through emotion. So, I married a man that isn't coming from that place. So sometimes he thinks I'm a little bit strange, but, if I feel like I need to stand in the kitchen and have a good cry about something, I don't hold that back. And I feel like, the people around me that I've cultivated are aware of it, and they are really great supporters. So there's an idea that, like, if I have an emotion, that I give myself permission to feel it. And like
Mm,
right now, what I'm noticing most, and is around the idea of shame and fear.
yes.
So in this time there's a lot of shaming going on about people and their habits, and staying home and all of those things, which I get. I mean, those are definite motivators, and we all need that, I guess. But there's just some noticing that's going on, but also the fear factor that keeps us all from potentially like looking at our lives a little bit differently. So that, that is just like an acknowledgement that helps me get through. But then on the other side of it is just, cultivating hope, and understanding that we can look at things from two different perspectives. We can either get drawn into it and feel the depression, or we can choose to look at the small things that bring us joy and get us out of that mindset. So that's kind of where my focal point has been right
Nice.
now in these times. But just trying to again get that rootedness back, figure out like what does bring me joy, and really leaning into that, and do a lot of you know introspective work, as I said before.
Right. And where does, so I heard you say this idea of being able to acknowledge my emotions and feel it. And because I think that's part of what can happen, unconstructively in the world, is it's hard to feel some emotions that we, like, people don't like to sit with pain or don't like to sit with fear for too long. So
Hmm.
then they dispel it and put it onto someone else. So
Hmm.
it's obvious that you have skill in, or at least a track record and an awareness of being able to acknowledge emotion and process it. So where did that come from? Like what from early days, from your family, can you identify, I mean, where that came from?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely came from my mom. My mom was a seeker, I would say. She went into all sorts of different spiritual practices
Oh, really?
along my growing up years. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
no.
She was a practicing much everything, but her biggest thing was, if you feel an emotion, you should work through it. And so that was kind of just what we did
Mm,
as young people, my sister and I specifically.
that's
And we
interesting.
didn't feel shame about that. So, like I I mean, I love the movie Inside Out for that reason. It's sort of like that ability to acknowledge the feeling, and then, if you try to deny it, it just festers and then shuts down the whole system. So I kind of, you know, think about that often, and that like things are definitely uncomfortable, but they're better to be faced head on, and I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to take you down. Like,
Yeah.
the death of my own mother is something that I continually, like, she's been gone for 8 years, but she is always a part of the emotions that I feel on a daily basis. And like those kinds of things, they can sidetrack you, or you can
Mm,
acknowledge them and sort of weave them into the tapestry of who you have become. And so I guess that's not my work. That is definitely something that I picked up from readings that I've done on specifically Buddhism. But it's like you can choose to, instead of reject those feelings and that grieving that you're doing, and put it into the bigger picture of the story that you have, and how you can go into the world and make it a better place.
that's awesome. The
Yeah.
analogy of the weaving of the tapestry is beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's an Eckhart Tolle. I didn't make that one up, but yeah,
That's
I mean, there's
awesome.
a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
a lot of things, and again, like, I've been working a lot on ideas around, you know, death and what that brings to the table in terms of how we live our lives, right? So that
Perspective.
perspective, that idea around, you know, really, not waiting and
Right.
letting everything in, and being, your true self. I think
Nice.
that is all part of that journey.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
um, so when so when you when I say, what are you most proud of, what would you say?
Well, I mean, the easiest ones would be probably my offspring.
Your children?
Yeah, I guess,
they are
like
talented and lovely. It's true.
like that would probably be the easiest thing to point to. But even that, like been doing a lot of reflection on them, being that they're now young adults. They're going to be 14 and 12, which blows my mind, as I know your children are the same
Mhm.
age. But um, they've come into themselves, and so a lot of that, I would say, is nature. That they've just become the person that they were meant to be, regardless of you know who happened to be their parent along the way. But I would definitely say that they bring me that feeling of just joy and
Yeah.
and just all sorts of goodness. But I would say second to that would probably be um, I try really hard to be that person that people can come to in times of turmoil or an unknowing, to be open hearted and to be able to you know
Mhm.
be with you as you are.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on the most these days. And that's not necessarily a purpose or a career path, but more just along the lines of what your legacy is, what you want to be known for. So that's what I'm working on now.
For sure. For sure. Well, uh, that's interesting because I asked the question what you were most proud of, and I certainly know that about you, that you are someone who can be open-hearted with someone in whatever state they present in,
Yeah.
and whatever they got with them or whatever that is. But um and then I heard you add the part, like, I'm not sure if that's a purpose or a career, but what's interesting about that is it's kind of an interesting add on to the end of that, is does that really matter, whether it's whether it's a career or not? What's interesting is you could
No,
probably take it to a ton of different careers and it would be awesome because it's a superpower to be able to be that way with people. Do you know what I mean?
totally. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the labeling exercise. And it really, again, it's just along the lines of, like, what does this, equate to, like wanting to solve a problem or have an
Right.
answer.
Right.
So, like, I've given myself permission just to kind of shed that and be able to just go with um, the journey of what interests me. So, taking some online classes or continuing education, or even, I may take something that leads me down, a more formulated path once I figure out what that is. But it's really, just holding the space for myself, which I think for women in general is a hard thing
Yes,
to do.
it absolutely is.
So yeah, so shutting down that inner critic. We all talk about that, but doing it is another thing altogether, and understanding, where your own misconceptions lie, even about yourself.
Mm,
That is a big one for me. Like, where did I get these impressions that I'm not good at something, or that this isn't something that I could achieve? All of that is just a lot of, asking the question of, why do I believe about myself?
it's just a lot of bullshit. Okay, good.
That's right, exactly.
All right, so three things that jazz you off the top of your head, like just fill you
Oh,
up, give you joy,
oh
thrill
my
you. What are they?
goodness. I love when the sun comes into my window unexpectedly. I don't think that's going to
Mm,
happen today, but like when you just get hit with like this blinding sun
yes.
that just makes you feel all warm, that gives me joy. I love to go and move outdoors. So, and
Yeah.
whatever that is, riding a bike, hiking, taking paddle boards, just being outside is my thing. And then I love to, gather with friends and cook food and chat and laugh and dance in the kitchen and, be with be with the people I love and my chosen family, which of course you are part of.
Oh, I feel special to be part of that. Thank you. That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. So we're coming to the end of our time together. And if you were to sort of, you've said a lot today, Colleen, and you've been very generous in terms of sharing this morning. But if you were to put your learning sort of into concise terms and want to relay it to someone, what would be the primary message or messages that about this specific transition and where you find yourself in life right now?
I think for me, what I'm working on is love and compassion. So that's not just for people around me, but also for myself. So, whatever form that is in, including just giving yourself the ability to, have a little bit of a sleep in, or, let your kids have that extra screen time, and not worry about the things that are probably not going to matter so much in the next few years. It's just to shut that down, and give yourself the space that you need, but also, just, don't wait. That's the other piece,
Mm,
is that, like,
mm,
this whole situation that I've encountered is really, I think, whether it be the universe or God or whatever wherever the message is coming from beyond, is around the idea that, like, this is your life, and really, like, all of the things that we've aspired to. It doesn't necessarily, um, whoever gave us those impressions may totally been wrong about it. So go on the journey.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Go
Don't
find
wait.
yourself.
Go
Yeah.
find what it
Don't wait.
is. It's true.
Yeah,
Don't do
exactly.
some job that someone told you was a good job to do or that your parents said you
Right.
should do. Do the one you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and be the person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, I
Sure.
want to so much for being in this everyday leadership series and sharing your story. I've really enjoyed my time with you this morning, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Take
All right.
care.
Take care. Bye bye.